All right. Today we're going on a bit of a guided tour. A tour of a really specific belief system about what happens after we die. Now, our source for this is a body of work from people who say they've received messages directly from spirit worlds. We're just going to dive in and explore what those messages actually say.
So just imagine this for a second. Your phone rings, you pick it up, and it's someone you love, someone who's passed on, and they're calling just to let you know they're all right. Now, for some people, this isn't just a fantasy. They believe it's a real possibility, all thanks to a certain kind of technology.
And there's actually a name for it. Instrumental Transcommunication, or ITC for short. It's this core idea that our modern electronics, phones, computers, you name it, can act as a kind of bridge between our world and other dimensions. According to the material we're looking at, this is exactly how they're getting these incredibly detailed messages about the afterlife. Okay, so if these calls are really being made, two huge questions pop up right away. Who is making the call, and where are they calling from? To really get what the messages are about, we first have to understand the messengers and the world they live in. So let's start our tour at the destination. According to these messages, when a person passes on, they arrive in what's described as an afterlife paradise. So what happens on that first day? Is it confusing? Scary? Well, according to this source, not at all. The whole idea here is that the transition is actually seamless. These messages claim that every single person is sort of analyzed based on all their past lives, every choice, every action. And then they're placed in a dimension that's just perfectly suited for them, a place where they'll feel right at home and can keep growing.
And to help us get our bearings, the source material lays out this kind of cosmic map with 7 different levels. Our physical world, right here, is level 1. That afterlife paradise they talk about, which they call Eden, is up at level 3. And it keeps going all the way up to level 7, which is described as this realm of pure light, as close as you can get to what you might call the source, or God.
So, who are our guides for this whole journey? Well, the messages are supposedly being coordinated by a small group of incredibly powerful beings. They're known as the 7, or sometimes the Rainbow People, apparently because of their colorful auras. And this really gives you a sense of who we're dealing with. The 7 are described as these great souls, almost like creators. They're said to have nearly unlimited power, wisdom, and goodness. The text says their entire being is illuminated by understanding and forgiveness, and it's this group that decides what information is most important to send down to us here on Earth.
Now that brings up a pretty obvious question, right? If these incredibly powerful beings are out there, why don't we hear from them all the time? Well, it turns out the communications lay out some very specific rules of intervention. It's not like any spirit can just pick up a cosmic phone and dial Earth whenever they want.
The source material really breaks it down into 2 different types of interveners. First, you've got our recently passed loved ones. Because they're still so close to us emotionally, they can send feelings of love and support, but, and this is key, usually only when we're in a calm, peaceful state. And then you have the 7. They're not getting involved for personal reasons. Their focus is way bigger. It's cosmic. They step in during huge turning points in human history. So what is their big purpose? This quote from the 7 kind of lays it all out. Their mission, as they state it, is to guide humanity back to a principle of unity, especially when things get chaotic, to help bring balance back to the world. But here's the twist. This whole communication thing, it's not a one-way street. According to the source, the biggest roadblocks to getting a clear connection aren't technical issues on their end. All that static on the line, the dropped calls, that's coming from us. This is a really crucial point. Our emotional state can act like a signal jammer. Strong negative emotions like constant worry, fear, and especially deep, unresolved grief, they create a kind of spiritual static that makes it almost impossible for spirits to get close. They lose what's described as resonance with us. And this message from the 7, it offers such a powerful and honestly compassionate reason why. It suggests that our own intense grief acts as a kind of protective shield. A child who's passed over, for example, is kept from seeing their parents suffering because that pain would just be too much for them. In a strange way, our sorrow protects them. The second big barrier is all in our heads. Our own deeply held beliefs, whether they come from a specific religion or from hardcore scientific skepticism, can act like a wall. If a message comes through that completely contradicts someone's view of the world, their mind it can't compute. The call gets dropped. One of the 7, a being known as Technician, gave this absolutely brilliant analogy.
If the person on this end of the line isn't even a little bit prepared to understand the information, then trying to communicate is pointless. The message just gets twisted by what the person already expects to hear.
So if our own minds and our own hearts are the problem, then what's the solution? This is where this whole system gets really practical. It basically argues that the rules for getting a clear spiritual connection are the exact same rules for living a good, meaningful life. When you boil it all down, even though ITC uses technology, the devices are not the most important part, not even close. The number one factor, according to this source, is the inner state of the person trying to make the connection. Things like honesty, goodwill, empathy, that's the stuff that actually powers the signal. So these are the principles they say create a crystal clear signal. And notice, they're not about secret rituals or anything like that. They're about basic human goodness, getting over our own selfishness, keeping a positive mindset, respecting nature, working together, and just acting with decency and empathy.
This quote from a spirit named Yang Fudse just captures that idea of unity perfectly. The point is that when good, honest people work together toward a shared positive goal, their combined energy creates a powerful connection that can't be broken. It makes for a very strong signal.
And that brings us to the final thought, doesn't it? If we take this system at its word, it suggests that every thought, every emotion, and every action is a kind of broadcast. It's not just sending a signal out into the universe, it's also defining the kind of signal we're able to receive. So it leaves us with a pretty big question to ponder. What are we broadcasting?